Hello, my sweet little grandchildren. Mema is back with another story for you. And this one is a Christmas story called Curious George in the Big City. I wonder what Curious George, what kind of mischief he can get into in a big city. Let's find out. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George was in the big city. "Let's stop here, George," his friend suggested. "I would like to get you a holiday surprise before we see the sights." Ooh, holiday surprise. What could it be? I love surprises. George loves surprises. He wanted to get a surprise for the man with the yellow hat, too. Why, here was a whole pile of surprises, all ready to go. Would one of these be right for his friend? George was curious. He opened a box and peeked inside. The box was empty. That was not a good surprise. George opened another box and another. They were all empty. Suddenly the store clerk came running. "Stop, please," he cried. "You are ruining my display." Oh, they were on display, so they were supposed to be empty. But George did not want to stop. He wanted to go. He wanted to get away fast. Quickly, he climbed on the escalator. George went up. The clerk went up too. What George wanted now was to find his friend. What luck! George spotted a yellow hat on the escalator going down. Could that be his friend? George wanted to find out. Soon, he was going down too. George followed the yellow hat out of the store and around the corner. He chased it down some stairs. Where could his friend be going? Was this George's surprise? Was that his friend? No, this was the subway. George got on the train just in time. He thought maybe his friend was playing a game with him. But where was the man now? George looked around. The train was very crowded. Could that be him on the other end of the subway car? It might be hard to get there. Have you ever been on the subway? What's it like? But not too hard for a little monkey. Suddenly the train stopped, and when the doors opened, the yellow hat disappeared. George followed as quickly as he could. But he was too late. This was not a surprise after all. This was a mistake. The yellow hat was nowhere to be seen. Poor George, he was all alone in the big city. How would he ever find his friend now? Soon George could see nothing but legs. He was surrounded by a crowd of moving people, and he had to keep moving himself so that he would not get stepped on. Then George heard a woman's voice coming from the head of the crowd. "Going up," she said. Up! That was just what George needed. He needed to be high up, like in a tree or on the escalator. Then he could get a good look around. George joined the crowd as they got into an elevator and went up. Is he going to be able to see on the elevator? Here was a good lookout. From here, George could see a bridge, lots of tall buildings, and a little green lady standing in the water. But he did not see his friend. Do you know what city he's in? Do you know what he's up on top of? This would be New York City, and this was back before the disaster that took the Twin Towers down. And there's the Statue of Liberty, and he's up on top of the Empire State Building. And your moms and dads can probably see the irony in him standing on top of the Empire State Building if they've ever seen a certain movie. Here was a good lookout. From up here, George could see a bridge, lots of tall buildings. Oh, I read this, I'm sorry. And a little green lady standing in the water. But he did not see his friend. The little green lady is the Statue of Liberty. It's time to go, called a woman from the elevator. We have lots more to see. The crowd followed the woman. They wanted to see more. George wanted to see more too. Soon George was on a big bus driving through the city. There was lots more to see. But no matter where George looked, he did not see the man with the yellow hat. Back on the bus, George looked and looked. Finally, he saw something familiar. George was excited. He rushed inside. He was sure to find his friend here. Instead, he ran right into the clerk. "You're just the one I've been looking for to help me fix this mess," he said. George felt bad. He had not meant to make such a mess. Could he help rewrap the boxes? George took some ribbon in one hand, some paper in another, and some tape in a third. What's he going to do? Then, like only a monkey can, George wrapped those boxes. Soon a crowd gathered to watch. Everyone wanted George to wrap their boxes too. Just as George tied his 25th quadruple bow, he spotted his friend. At last, George was happy. But when he saw that the man was carrying a present, George became sad. He had forgotten all about finding a surprise for his friend. Then he had an idea. What was that idea? "George," exclaimed the man with the yellow hat, "what a good surprise!" His friend was very glad to see him. "I've been looking all over the store for you," he said, "and now I have a surprise for you too." So what did he do? He popped out of the box. George opened his surprise and put it on. It fit perfectly. "Now we're ready to see the sights," the man said. George held tightly to his friend's hand, and everyone waved goodbye. "Let's be careful not to get separated again," the man with the yellow hat said as they left the store. "The best part of the holidays is spending time together," George agreed. The end. I hope you liked my story as much as I enjoyed reading it to you. You have a very Merry, Merry Christmas. I will be back again with another story for you. I love you. I miss you. Be good. Be nice.